Good morning, DevOps people. Welcome to Full Stack Live. Still a little bit tired. Wednesday nights are always World of Warcraft guild nights, raiding time, and we did a plus 15 dungeon afterwards, which took us only about more than an hour because we were some of us were severely under-geared, and so it took at least double the time it should have done, and I got to bed a little bit late. But still, well, coffee is doing its magic, and I'll probably be taking a break later to prepare myself another cup. Until then, I'm going to do a few things, mostly do a little bit of preparation for the co-working I'm going to do from time to time on this stream. In the past, I've been struggling a bit with the amount of time I put into the stream in opposite of the time I needed to work. So sometimes I had to cancel the stream because I wanted to do work, and as quite a few streamers tend to do these days, I'll simply try and combine the two things by doing a little bit of work while the stream is not showing my desktop, if it's something that's a little bit more sensitive and something that I don't want to broadcast to the world. I'll do my stuff while you can still hang out in chat, and I'll try and be not too distracted as I was on Tuesday, because Tuesday was my first stream in months, and I was more than happy to drop a little bit of work for having a chat. That being said, this is supposed to be very interactive, so if there's anything that you'd like to share, if there's anything that you'd like to talk about, if there's a question that you'd like to ask, pop into chat and say hi, and I'll see what I can contribute. Okay, so let me check. I think we're good. And Mac Breaks is telling me that my next rest break is going to be in 3 minutes. I'll skip this break, so I get a new timer starting now. And yeah, how is everyone? I hope you're doing great. I'm doing fine. Weather outside is brilliant, and I definitely intend to go for a walk later, or maybe take my scooter for a ride as I did yesterday. I'll need to find places in around town. Let's put it this way: places around town that don't only have a bench or some kind like this, something like this, but also a table. Because if the weather is as grand as it is now, I'd be more than happy to take my mobile equipment and set up shop somewhere where I can use a table. Other than that, without a table, it's a bit tedious. I don't want to sit hunched over for prolonged time, so I think a table should be is a requirement for me. Unfortunately, places are still closed thanks to COVID, so there's no working in a coffee shop or in a library. Otherwise, that would be something that I'd consider as well. Question to you: if you're working from home, how do you take breaks from time to time, or is there a way you have found to do work that is not at your usual place at home? Some people don't even have a dedicated workspace because they simply didn't have the space when the pandemic hit, and sometimes I wonder how these people get by working from a table in their bedroom or something like that, and how do you make sure that you're not aching after hours working in this situation. And if there is anything that you'd like to share from your experience, please do so. Okay, so let's see. Here we are. On this side, I have my note-taking app. I'm using Obsidian. And yes, I have a little bit of follow-up. On Tuesday, we talked about the topic of doing teamwork, namely pair programming or mob programming if it's more than another person, and we'll get to that in a minute. Instead of doing peer reviews and waiting for ages for people to review your merge request. And I mentioned that I had found an article that was quite inspiring in this regard, and yes, I was right. My memory told me that it was an article by Jessica Kerr. Let me see if I click this. Yes, it works. That's nice. Yeah, so that's the article by Jessica Kerr, Jessitron, where she makes a solid argument for not doing as many peer reviews. She said, let's face it, nobody wants to review pull requests. It takes a lot of time and work. Yes, it does. Especially if you want to do it right, which is not only taking a cursory glance over the code, but really checking the changes out, running the test suite, taking a closer look to the code and things like that. That's solid review, and it will certainly have good results. But when you put on top summarizing your findings in your comment on the merge request and things like that, this is going to take serious time. And so Jessica advocates a different approach in which she says, maybe if you're asking the wrong question, it's not about speeding up pull requests, it's about taking a different approach altogether. And so if we want our team to understand the changes we are making to our code base, how about involving them earlier than when it's done? And so she says, let's do ensemble working, the practice formerly known as mob programming, where you share your findings and your thoughts while you are making your changes and not after. And that's, I think, a smart thought. Looking back on my own experience in terms of pair programming, it was always worth time. Not a single time did I say, well, that's 2 hours that I'll never get back. So that's something I can confirm. And there were too many times when I thought, when will this pull request be finally get approved and reviewed? So that's something that I'd really like to try out in my own team. And the name ensemble working comes from another article by Elizabeth Hock, where she writes, ensemble is the new mob. And she writes, they noticed I was speaking about an ensemble these days instead of the mob. They were curious to learn about the background of this switch, and if both terms refer to the same approach, it really made me smile. What a great learning opportunity. For everyone who might have had the same question, here's what I answered. Both terms, ensemble and mob, refer to the same approach. People had been looking for a replacement term for many years to get rid of the negative connotations of the mob, which was perceived as problematic. Yeah, I can see why that is. Many people had been appalled by the term mob and hence didn't want to give it a try. Thinking of bullying or lynch mobs, the term is triggering trauma. Since last year, we now finally have a new term that's a lot more inclusive, the ensemble. I've put both links into chat so you can read them for yourself. But yeah, that's something that I'm definitely going to try and incorporate in my own work. And I'll report back if I have any findings. So that's these two follow-ups done. What I'd like to do first on today's stream is do a little bit of setup for myself, especially in terms of the new way I'd like to structure this stream. For example, I'm using the app Minus for preventing the worst distractions. Just when I prepared for today's stream, I realized that Minus could help me clean up my desktop and things like that for a stream. So let's see what we can do. What Minus has among its features is these desktop environments where you can define different setups and things like that. And wait, I cannot click Minus without enabling the desktop environment, which hides all my windows. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to fly blind for the next few minutes. Let me see. So I could actually create a new environment called streaming, where we put our desktop into auto, dark mode or light mode. At my current schedule, it'll be light mode because I'm streaming in the late morning. Change wallpaper. Oh, makes sense. Hide desktop icons. Yes. No grayscale. Thank you. Reduce interface motion. Oh, don't need that. Disable sleep screensaver logout. Yes. And enable do not disturb. That's all very good for a stream. Auto hide menu bar, no. Auto hide the dock, no. Use scale dock animation, yes. I do like the scaling animation of the dock, and why not? Use smooth transitions when enabling disabling. I don't care about that. So let's enable that. Oh yeah, okay. So we now have a gray background. Can I get my windows back, please? Here we go. So, second thing I'd like to do is build a OBS scene for my co-working mode. I've built my scenes, backgrounds and things like that myself using Affinity Designer. The app deserves the name Designer much more than I do. So let's see, it'll probably be based on my talk overlay because I want you to see me and I'd like to have chat. Well, basically I'll simply have to throw the switch from chat to code. Or work. So let's duplicate the talk overlay. Let's call this Coworking overlay. I'll rename that. And I'll simply flip this horizontally. That's more or less it, isn't it? Cool beans. Oh crap. I modified the wrong layer. Let me see. That's talk. And that has now become Coworking, so I'll have to rename these appropriately. And now I can simply go ahead and export this and import it into Stream Elements. That should do the trick. Let's duplicate the talk scene here. And I'll call that FSL Coworking. And then I'll have to simply replace this image, upload the new one. And that's that. I guess I'll add that to OBS later because I don't want to risk screwing things up while being live. But with that done, the question is, what am I going to do now? Well, at least I'll switch to the talk overlay because there's nothing I can show at the moment. We can close down Affinity. So let me take a look at my task list for today. Most of the work that I've scheduled for today is working on my presentation for the Digital by Default Summit. However, for now that my presentation script is finished, I need to refine it by recording myself and making changes to the script as I see fit. And I guess that's not that suited for the stream. Other than that, I have a book club meeting later, for which I was a little bit too ambitious. I haven't read the book yet, and I don't think that I am going to be able to. But maybe I can at least prepare a few questions for that book club later. Let me see, how is this going to happen anyway? Because it's only in my calendar, it's only half an hour, and I'm not sure how this is supposed to work. Well, they've actually only scheduled half an hour. And it's going to be about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which has very good reputation, so I was more than happy to join that book club for this. It's the first time I'm taking part here, but I actually didn't get to read it. In general, I didn't find nearly enough time for reading recently. I have no idea why that is. But yeah, that's something I'm not too happy about, because reading is something I've always enjoyed, and I've learned so much. And now that I've taken up proper note-taking while I'm reading, it's even got better in terms of learning and really ingesting stuff. So yeah, it's a pity that I don't get to read as much as I would like to. Okay, now let's see. I guess it's actually just about to get everyone a few minutes to talk about their reading and the book. Okay, so I guess I don't have to prepare too much for that. I guess the goal for this call for me is going to be prepare a few questions in the advance, and then add a few more questions to my list during the call, so when I actually read the book, I can look for answers to my own questions, and that way I get a little bit more focus, and I can see if the book is actually doing something for my specific needs, or if it's just an enjoyable read. Okay, so let me see. if I've even downloaded the book. That would be a good start, wouldn't it? So... Excuse me. Kindle says you're on a reading streak. You've read 4 weeks in a row. Yeah, okay. So I read a little bit every week, but not nearly as much as I would have liked. Show library. I have not downloaded it yet. How's everyone doing? Okay, so let me go ahead and buy the book. CreatureNex, hello, welcome to Full Stack Live. Thanks for joining me in chat. To continue, approve the notification. Yeah, okay. Tap a link to respond. Approval. So, Kindle edition, deliver to my iPad. I'm doing fine, doing fine. Weather is great, which is nice because it makes my office warm and it gives it a little bit of joy. And I'm definitely going to go outside later, so I have a little bit of change of scenery. As I said earlier, I'm going to try and find places around town where I can not only sit on a bench, but also have a table to put my iPad on, so that I can maybe even do a little bit of work outside when the sun's out. Even here in Ireland, it's going to be warm enough to sit for a while. I'll probably have to keep my coat on, but other than that, it's possible, and it's a nice change to not having to sit in this tiny little office all day. Since I've only just relaunched my stream after quite a few weeks of hiatus, I'm going to do a little bit of co-working, so I can basically combine the time I do streaming with the time I need for doing work. You're more than welcome to hang out here and join me and other viewers in chat. And how are you? So that's that. Book has been acquired. Atomic Habits. Where are you? Here it is. Typical time to read 5 hours and 42 minutes, and I still have one a bit more than an hour until my book club meeting, so we'll have to read at 6 times speed, something like that. No, just kidding. I'll simply write down a few questions. You know what? I'm going to read the foreword just to get a feel for the book. And then I'm going to write down a few questions that I'd like to ask the other members of my book club that I've just joined recently. This is going to be the first session that I'm joining. More importantly, I'm going to ask the same questions to the book when I actually read it. So that'll give me a little bit more focus in terms of my reading. So let me just put my iPad in front of me and I'm going to read. Feel free to share in chat if you are reading a book yourself at the moment and what book it is and what do you think about it. Oh, nice. So you're trying to have you just started to learn Ruby? That's definitely not the worst choice you could have made. Ruby still is a very good language, especially if you want to have a little bit of a broader spectrum in the full stack sense. Happy that you found me. Don't forget to follow. Oof, this forework starts gruesome. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmate took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hands and came flying toward me before striking me directly between the eyes. Collision set the soft tissue of my brain slamming into the inside of my skull. So it not only was his nose broken, but also severe concussion, I guess. Immediately a wave of swelling surged throughout my head. In a fraction of a second I had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets. And they walked to the nurse's office. Jesus effing Christ. I didn't even think of calling an ambulance. Online school at launch school. Interesting. I've never seen that. Oof. Okay. Structured curriculum from first principles. Looks nice. Passed the exam, so I should know the basics of Ruby and object-oriented programming. Currently learning network fundamentals. Oh, nice. ISO OC. I'm reading the foreword to Atomic Habits because I'm going to have my first book club, my online book club meeting later. I recently joined an online book club, and the book Atomic Habits by James Clear is going to be the first session I'm going to participate in. So what I'm doing at the moment is to simply read the foreword to get into things. And since I'm not going to be able to read the book in the short time I have left, I'll simply prepare a few questions based on the foreword and the table of contents, and I'm going to use these questions to get something out of the book club session that we're going to have on Zoom later. And especially when I actually read the book, I'm going to revisit these questions and see how the book answers them, which is, I think, always a good approach to reading books, especially in non-fiction books. When you prepare with a few questions, why am I reading this book? What do I want to get out of it? What specific questions do I already have about the topic the book is covering? And then try and answer these questions during reading. That's how I approach my reading, if it's not just a novel. Yeah, it's going to be in about an hour's time, an hour and 9 minutes. So I'm going to stream, let me see, what have I scheduled actually? Yeah, I'm going to stream for another hour or so. I'm not going to spend all the time reading, but that's the next thing I'm going to do. And so feel free to hang out. If there's anything that you'd like to ask in the meantime, if there's anything I can help you with in terms of Ruby or OOP or anything else, feel free to do so. We'll have time later to cover that. This foreword is really very graphic. Let me make a note about this. I always try to make notes about the books I read. And I don't think I already have a note about Atomic Habits, do I? No, I don't. So let's create a new note. Book notes. Title Atomic Habits. what I'm writing down is I found it quite funny how drastically graphic the description of the author's school accident was. Okay, so here in the foreword is a sentence that's already underlined as a highlight someone else did, and I guess that's the central topic of that's going to be the central topic of the book, Atomic Habits. The quote says, "Changes that seem small and unimportant at first will compound into remarkable results if you're willing to stick with them for years." Okay. Okay, something that just crossed my mind was the author is mentioning the behavioral scientist B.F. Skinner, as well as the author Charles Duhigg, who wrote The Power of Habit, which is definitely something that's related to this book, Atomic Habits. And actually it seems like Atomic Habits is based on The Power of Habit. Maybe I should read that first. But what actually crossed my mind was this mention of B.F. Skinner. Since I think I remember him mentioned in a book that I read recently called Drive, about motivation. And I should actually start adding these references to my book notes so I can actually see which books mention the same people, which books cite the same books, things like that, so I get a more hyperlinked collection of book notes. So I've added myself a task to check if Skinner was actually mentioned in Drive, and if so, then to add that to my book notes. I guess that's called cross-referencing, and I never really grasped what it meant. I think that would have been a great course to have at the start of my college years. How to read, how to take notes, how to cross-reference stuff. I'm quite sad that it took me so long to learn about these things, and especially to implement them. Pretty sure I would have greatly benefited from a good note-taking habit had I started it 30 years ago. So, my first question is, what are the 4 laws of behavior change? Because that's a term that's mentioned in this foreword. I'm quite sure that's intentional. Okay, forward done. And now let's take a look at the table of contents. First chapter is named The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Guess that's just to whet the appetite. Second chapter is named How Your Habits Shape Your Identity. That's an interesting thought. So, how do habits shape my identity? How does my identity influence my habits? That's something that I've actually heard quite a lot about already, where things become easier when you intentionally and consciously identify yourself with them. For example, that's not at all. That's completely hypothetical. If you want to spend more time with your family, it might help not only scheduling time or adding a to-do to your task list or something like that, but on the meta level, identifying yourself, in this case, as a good husband or a caring father, something like that. And by shaping your identity to say, I am a caring father, it might become easier to actually make the time and put in the effort that's necessary to actually fulfill that identity. I guess that will turn up in this chapter as well. Then there's chapter 3, How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. That's very self-helpy, but still interesting. And then here we have the 4 laws of behavior change. Interesting. So basically the table of contents already answers that, because there's a section in the book for each of them. There's a section with 4 chapters. The first law, make it obvious. Then there's another part, the second law, make it attractive. The third law is make it easy. And the fourth law is make it satisfying. Interesting that the author uses the term law, because that's more like a rule or even advice. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. Okay. Yeah, that I can relate that to a lot of stuff I've read in the past. Seems like many people had already read this book. Things like make it easy. There's quite a common advice for people who want to exercise, start their day exercising and finding it a hard time, having a hard time getting up in the morning, by making it easier by actually preparing your exercise clothes right next to your bed, so you can simply get up, get into your stuff and running shoes, and then go exercising. It becomes easier to make this a habit. Okay, so basically, yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm not going to answer the question, what are the 4 laws of behavior change, even though I'm pretty sure the table of contents already reveals that answer. Okay, so other than that, I don't think there's much I can actually take from the table of contents alone. So I guess I'll try and come up with a few questions of myself. One very basic question that I have would be, how do I identify which habits I should have in the first place? How do I know when I should drop a habit? I mean, if it's a bad habit like smoking or something like that, then the answer is obvious. But if it's a good habit, there might be times when it's time to stop doing something. Parika, hi, how you doing? Welcome to Full Stack Live. Thanks for joining us. I'm preparing for a book club session that I'm going to have on Zoom later today. I've just recently joined a book club, and the first session I'm going to join is about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Well, let's write that down actually. James Clear. And since I can't read that book in the final few minutes I have, I decided to simply write down a few questions that I can ask later, see if someone else can answer them, and especially that I can revisit when I read the book myself. Interesting tidbit from the first chapter, where the author writes about the British cycling team, the professional cycling team, which had been pretty mediocre. In 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the event. In fact, the performance of British riders had been so underwhelming that one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe refused to sell bikes to the team because they were afraid that it would hurt sales if other professionals saw the Brits using their gear. Wow, if you're so bad that vendors fear that the simple fact of selling to you might actually hurt their sales, that's quite something. So another question that I just got from a paragraph is where the new coach of the British cycling team is quoted with, "The whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improve it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together." And this 1% rule gets thrown around quite a lot, where they make the argument, well, it's basically a matter of compound interest. If you improve by 1% and then improve that new level you have by another 1% and then by another 1%, it'll be an exponential increase, and you'll make lots of improvement by simply getting better by 1% all the time. But maybe, as the pandemic has told us, exponential maths isn't as simple as that, because actually improving by 1% will become more and more difficult. The higher level you have, improving by an actual 1% will get harder and require more input. And so this simple rule or simple hypothesis or whatever you want to call it will probably not stand the test of time. And I wonder if this book is responsible for propagating this 1% rule so that it gets used all over the place. I mean, it still makes sense to advocate making small improvements instead of aiming for the moon and then failing completely, but the compound interest thing is a little bit questionable in my mind. Okay, so does the 1% rule, or my question is basically, is the 1% rule sustainable? Or will improving by 1% not become unattainable over time? Okay, I think that's enough questions for this thing here. Which means that I feel prepared enough for my session later. Let me take a look at my other plans for today. Taking a walk, definitely. I'll combine that with my lunch break. And then I'll be doing test recording of my presentation for the Digital by Default Summit. And I'm going to use these test recordings to refine my script. That's going to be the first time I'm going to use a teleprompter to actually record a presentation. And I'm quite excited to see the result. Okay, so there's nothing else that that needs to be done for today. I just realized I can close quite a few of my projects in my to-do list. Okay, so Digital by Default Summit is now top of my list. And I guess there's not much more than I can actually start in the time I have left. Can we get a little bit different music? What about this? So okay, I guess I'll see if I can prepare a coding project for my next stream on Tuesday next week. For today, I don't have anything that I can pick up right away. What I'm going to do is I'll review my reading highlights. I'm using a service called readwise.io. They take your highlights from the Kindle app or similar book apps and compile them and do their own spin on spaced repetition, where they resurface these highlights, and by reviewing 5 of these highlights every day, I actually get reminded of the stuff that I've highlighted during my reads, and over time that helps maintaining a basic memory of the most important stuff from these books. I enjoy using Readwise quite a bit. Okay, here's a quote from Sandy Metz out of Practical Object-Oriented Design in Ruby, where she wrote, "Writing tests first forces a modicum of reusability to be built into an object from its inception. It would otherwise be impossible to write tests at all." So you need to have a basic level of reusability, otherwise using the object outside its actual implementation or usage, namely inside a test, would be impossible. Therefore, novice designers are best served by writing test-first code. So she's making an argument for TDD. Their lack of design skills may make this bafflingly difficult, and I can confirm that. But if they persevere, they will at least have testable code, something that may not otherwise be true. So, Creature Next, that's something you might be able to take away. Try and write tests for your code first. So try and do TDD, test-driven development, even if it seems very, very hard at first, which it probably will. Then there's The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. Authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. Good, good. I don't have any experience with Minitest, but it seems to be quite a nice testing framework. I just realized I got a break reminder. And I wonder, did I miss the reminders that I got before? I should have gotten another break reminder earlier. I simply ignored that, I guess. But I feed it in my bot that I should get up. Then there's Leading Change by John P. Cotter. Until changes sink down deeply into the culture, for which an entire company can take 3 to 10 years, new approaches are fragile and subject to regression. So the seeds of new culture need to be protected and nurtured, I guess. And there's a quote from Drive, which a book that I mentioned earlier. Intrinsic motivation is conducive to creativity. Controlling extrinsic motivation is detrimental to creativity. In other words, the central tenets of Motivation 2.0, that kind of motivation we are used to with, for example, companies providing incentives to do the right work and threatens punishments if you don't. That's the carrot and stick approach, which Pink calls Motivation 2.0. The central tenets of Motivation 2.0 may actually impair performance of the heuristic right brain work on which modern economies depend. So, in summary, the old carrot and a stick approach is not working anymore for the type of work people like you and I are doing. And then there's a quote from the DevOps Handbook by Gene Kim and others. Because value is created only when our services are running in production, we must ensure that we are not only delivering fast flow to get our services into production, but that our deployments can also be performed without causing chaos and disruptions, such as service outages, service impairments, or security or compliance failures. Well, that seems quite obvious, I guess. But it means that our deployments need to be as stable and reliable as possible, and maybe that harkens back to the TDD topic earlier, because TDD can help greatly, or having tests in general can help greatly with having smooth deployments, because the better your test suite reflects how things work in production, the better, the easier time you will have deploying newly tested changes. And that's my Readwise refresh done for today. I've reviewed 243 days in a row. And it would be 443 had I not missed that one single day in summer last year. And Readwise tells me my Kindle highlights have stopped syncing. Well, that's something we need to fix. I'm not only coming up on time, I also start feeling hungry, so I'm soon going to wrap up this stream. Review reading highlights. Yeah, that's don't have anything else to do than to start reviewing my presentation script later today. So I guess, yeah, it's time to wrap things up. Quite happy about my results for today. I've prepared my new Coworking segment. I've actually practiced it. So next time I'm going to have my own OBS scene for Coworking, and just at this second my break timer kicks in as well, so it's perfect timing. I'm very happy that I'm back on Twitch again, that I have the time and headspace to do these streams. I hope you enjoyed it a little bit, even though I didn't do anything spectacular today. I'll try and get something more DevOps-y again next Tuesday, and I'll have to prepare for that. Other than that, I guess, yeah, that's it, I guess, for today. And I'd like to thank everyone for dropping by, for chatting, for saying hello. And I hope to see you again next Tuesday. Make sure to follow this stream so you get a notification when I'm back online. And if you like, you can also join my Discord server. The address is hidden behind the !Discord command. And yeah, let me just put it into chat for you. Discord. Oh, thanks, Aparike. Thank you very much, and rest assured that I'll be back. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know. And so until next week, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Take care.